What if the solution to inflation, debt slavery, and greed was written 1,400 years ago? Not in a Wall Street boardroom, not in an Ivy League economics department, not in a Silicon Valley algorithm, but in a desert. Revealed to a man who owned nothing, borrowed nothing with interest, and warned humanity about a system that would one day eat itself alive. Today, America is the richest nation in history, yet its people are drowning in debt, anxiety, inflation, and a quiet fear that no matter how hard they work, the system is rigged. Student loans never end. Credit cards multiply. Mortgages stretch across lifetimes. Billionaires grow richer during recessions, and the middle class shrinks year by year. We are told this is normal. We are told this is capitalism working. But what if this isn't progress? What if this is exactly what the Quran warned about when it spoke against riba interest, not as a religious taboo, but as an economic poison? Islam's economic system doesn't begin with profit. It begins with justice. It doesn't worship growth at any cost. It asks who pays the cost. In modern capitalism, money itself has become a product. You sell money to make more money, detached from labor, risk, or real value. Banks create money out of nothing, lend it with interest, and demand more back than was ever created, forcing perpetual debt. This is not a bug in the system. It is the system. Islamic economics rejects this at its core. Riba is forbidden not because Islam is anti-wealth, but because it is anti-exploitation. In an interest-based system, the lender wins whether the borrower succeeds or fails. Risk is transferred downward. Loss is privatized for the poor, profit guaranteed for the powerful. Islam flips this logic entirely. Wealth must be earned through real trade, real risk, real productivity. If you invest, you share profit, but you also share loss. This single principle alone dismantles debt slavery. Imagine an America where banks couldn't profit from your failure, where financial institutions were forced to care whether you succeeded, where money couldn't grow by sitting still while humans ran themselves into exhaustion. Inflation, one of America's greatest silent enemies, thrives on endless money creation and interest-driven expansion. Prices rise not because goods are scarce, but because currency is diluted. Islamic economics ties money to real assets, discourages hoarding, and forces circulation. Money is not meant to stagnate. It is meant to move. That is why Zakat exists, not charity, as optional kindness, but redistribution as obligation. Every year, idle wealth is taxed and returned to society, not trickle-down promises. Direct circulation. The poor are not treated as failures. They are recognized as stakeholders. Contrast this with modern America, where wealth accumulates at the top, locked in stocks, offshore accounts, and speculative assets, while millions live paycheck to paycheck. Islam calls hoarding a moral and economic crime because stagnant wealth suffocates economies. When money stops flowing, societies decay. And then there is greed, the engine of modern capitalism. We are taught that greed is good, that self-interest drives innovation, that competition justifies casualties. But Islam recognizes a truth modern economics avoids. Unchecked greed is not productive, is destructive. Islam allows profit, encourages business, honors traders, but places moral boundaries. You cannot deceive, you cannot monopolize, you cannot manipulate scarcity, you cannot profit from harm. Compare this to American corporate culture, where pharmaceuticals raise prices overnight, housing becomes a speculative asset instead of shelter, and basic necessities are exploited for maximum extraction. Islamic economics asks a radical question. Should the economy serve people, or should people serve the economy? In America, success is measured by GDP growth even. If mental health collapses, families break, and communities dissolve. Islamic economics measures success by balance between individual ambition and collective well-being, between wealth and responsibility, between rights and duties. The Prophet Muhammad was not anti-market, he regulated it. He intervened against price manipulation, false scarcity, and injustice. He established rules that prevented the strong from devouring the weak. This wasn't utopian theory. For centuries, Islamic civilizations operated interest-free systems with vibrant trade networks, social mobility, and financial stability that Europe would not see until much later. While modern capitalism cycles through booms and crashes, Islamic economics is designed to prevent extreme snow-explosive bubbles. No infinite debt, no guaranteed profits without risk. Even charity in Islam is strategic. Zakat targets 8 specific categories: debt-ridden, poor, travelers, social welfare ensuring, Money heals systemic wounds instead of serving emotional gestures. Voluntary charity, sadaqah, further fuels compassion-driven circulation. This is not socialism. The state does not own everything. This is not capitalism. Corporations do not own everything. This is a third-path moral markets, free enterprise with ethical bricks. And here's the uncomfortable truth. America never tried this system, not because it failed, but because it threatens those who profit most from debt. Interest-based finance fuels banks, hedge funds, and political power structures. Removing riba would collapse entire industries built on exploitation. That is why Islamic economics is rarely taught in Western universities. Not because it lacks logic, but because it challenges the foundations of financial dominance. Imagine student loans without interest, mortgages based on shared ownership, not lifelong bondage, businesses funded through partnerships, not predatory lending, wealth taxed when idle, not when productive, inflation restrained by asset-backed currency, poverty treated as a systemic failure, not a personal flaw. This is not fantasy. It already exists in fragments in Islamic finance institutions around the world, quietly outperforming during financial crises. During the 2008 crash, Islamic banks were among the least affected because they weren't gambling on debt, derivatives detached from reality. The system America trusts failed spectacularly, yet America doubled down. More debt, more interest, more inflation. Islam warned humanity about this trajectory centuries ago. When money becomes an idol, society fractures. When profit loses morality, injustice becomes policy. When debt replaces dignity, people become tools. This is not about converting America to Islam. This is about asking an honest question. What if the economic crisis we face is not due to lack of intelligence, but lack of ethics? What if the future doesn't need a new system, but a forgotten one? Islam's economic principles don't promise utopia, but they promise restraint. They don't eliminate ambition, but they humanize it. They don't deny wealth, but they demand accountability. And in an age where capitalism is eating itself, that may be the most radical idea of all. The question isn't whether Islamic economics works. The question is whether a debt-based empire can survive without it. America asked how to grow rich. Islam asked how to stay just. And that may be the difference between survival and collapse.